Kenko Hacks, a podcast about wellness, health, and biohacking.
Konnichiwa. This is podcast at Kenko Hacks. For today's episode, we are so happy to have Paris Prynkiewicz as a guest. Paris, thank you so much for being our guest and welcome to the show.
Of course. I'm so happy to be here and to talk with you guys.
Thank you so much. Did I get your surname right?
Yes, Prynkiewicz, you got it.
Okay.
It's a hard one, but you
Yeah,
did. You did.
it's a hard one.
You did it.
Great, great. You have extensive educational background in psychology. You completed both BA and MBA in psychology, and you are the host of the awesome podcast Crooked Illness that focuses on mental health and the mindset. Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners
Yes.
and how you got interested in mental health in the beginning?
Yes, of course. So you did a really great intro there. So yeah, so I got my BA in psychology and then my MBA in healthcare administration, and then I started my podcast. It's called Crooked Illness, and I decided to launch it to tell my story related to mental health and mindset, but also to create a platform to allow other people to come on, share their stories, share their experiences, share different information with me related to mental health and mindset topics, just to make more of these conversations more normalized and less stigmatized. And I really wanted to get into my story and, what crooked illness is all about, what it means. And, that kind of ties back into, the whole piece of how am I related to this. So I have two different perspectives. So I call them there's the patient perspective and then the employee perspective.
Mhm.
So when I was 19, I was diagnosed bipolar, hospitalized, and that was that time in my life when I was just struggling really, really badly from inside the hospital walls and just not doing well. So that was the first perspective, and then the second perspective was the employee view. So when I was 23,
Mhm.
I graduated from college and I ended up accepting a position at the same clinic that I was actually a patient at. So I got to go back and I saw things from two different perspectives. So I say crooked illness because during the time when I was struggling, hospitalized, I didn't see how crooked I was being to myself, to others around me. I had no awareness of that because I was so wrapped up in the stigma related to mental health. And then when I was working, I saw that in other people as well. So I was like, wow, this is definitely something that affects a lot of people, everyone, way more than I thought. And I was like, you know what? I want to tell my story, share my experiences so other people can, start to feel comfortable talking about their experiences. So that's where
Yeah.
I decided to start it.
Yeah, you are very open to talk about your own experiences with mental health, which I really greatly admire because, as you say, it's a discussion of mental health often gets stigmatized, and you are such a great example of breaking that stigma. And you mentioned that your struggle or your diagnosis with bipolar disorder. Was it something that triggered it, or how did it did it is it something, because I'm quite interested in the because our podcast is about biohacks, so I think our audience is quite knowledgeable about, for example, genetics, genetic tendency to get some mental illness, for example. Have you discovered such a like trigger in your case?
Yes, so I definitely agree with you there. So talking about genetics, so my it runs in my family too.
Mhm.
So my aunt is bipolar and I was actually misdiagnosed. So at 16, I remember being diagnosed with depression, and I remember just and I was diagnosed bipolar at 19. So from 16 to 19, I was like something else is going on here. Like this is not depression, because I would have, bipolar is periods of depression and also periods of being manic as
Yeah.
well. So where you're very high, a lot of energy, just talking rapid speech, like running around, like spending all your money, all these crazy things. And then depression is like very, very low. And that I had both of those. So I was like, I think that this is what's going on. But the thing was that no one believed me because I was, on the outside, I did a very good job of hiding everything because I didn't want people to know anything was wrong
Mhm.
because I was afraid if they knew, then they would think, they would judge me or like not want to be around me or something. And I just was like, you know what, this isn't something that I should be talking about. And it was because of the stigma related to it. So that's really what kept me back from talking about these experiences, from really actually moving forward from them because I wasn't dealing with it. I was just ignoring it, pushing it off, and it was just getting worse and worse.
Right.
And until I finally, realized that I could work on myself, I could do this work internally as well as, therapy, medications, all of this. But that's all great, but I needed to work on myself, my mindset, the way I talked to myself, the way I, viewed the world, other people, and just take that cloud of negativity and start to become more positive
Right.
and more excited and more hopeful. And instead of focusing so much on everything that was wrong and everything that could potentially go wrong, I really needed to start shifting that. And there's a lot of things that I did. I done therapy, different medications. I'm still on medication, and kind of just doing different mindset work, reading a lot of books, learning different things that are out there because there's so many resources when it comes to mental health. And that's really what I love learning about because I feel like every day there's something else that's out there that's
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
that we can learn about. And it's
Absolutely.
really exciting. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that today, as you say, we have more resources like your awesome podcast, Crooked Illness. And I think that it has definitely helped people to open up a little bit to mental health and mental illness and talk about it. But still, I do feel that the stigma is still there. And well, depending on maybe where you are and whom you talk to, of course. But I myself, for example, have worked in the tech industry all my life, and I think that it's only the couple of like last couple of years when we can actually openly discuss like, oh, I had actually burnout. I was very stressed and I really couldn't keep working anymore. I had to take a rest. But before that, like 10 years ago, I think that people are kind of afraid or a little bit ashamed of saying that, well, I had a burnout. And it's even like, I think it's a mild form of mental illness, if you'd like to say. There are much more serious ones, but still, I think that that stigma is still there, and even in a milder form, maybe. When it comes to your own bipolar disorder, for example, I'm just curious to know. You said that you have improved, you are hospitalized, and you've gone through different therapies, different treatments. You are still taking medications, but have you noticed something that made the most impact on improving your bipolar disorder, or are they working all together synergetically to make it improve?
Yes, definitely. So I really agree with you too about talking about the stigma, especially in workplaces. And like even when you talk about burnout and stress and being overwhelmed, not wanting to say that, not wanting to talk about that, I think is definitely a real thing that a lot
Yeah.
of people experience. But I would have to tell you the biggest thing that has had the most impact on me was when I decided to start working on me, to
Hmm.
start looking at myself and saying, here are things that I do or things that I've done that are keeping me stuck, that are keeping me feeling like I'm stuck in this place. I can't move forward. I just have to deal with this. I can't talk about anything because I'm afraid. I think I'll be judged, all of these things. I needed to start seeing and recognizing that. So I needed to gain awareness, right? Because I
Hmm.
didn't have awareness before. I just was kind of, I would get up every day And often, more than anything, I would just really focus on things that were wrong, or like things that weren't going right, or things that were making me sad, overwhelmed, all of these feelings.
Right.
And it really clouded my focus for the day because I was so focused on these things, and I needed to start doing something else. So
Yeah.
what I started doing, right? So I started doing a lot of personal development, reading a lot of books, and then noticing when I started to start my day with practicing gratitude, right? So
Mhm.
you can do that through journaling, and there's meditation, different kinds of things. But, starting your day where you get up and you say three things you're grateful for, and I write this down.
Mhm.
So you write out what you're grateful for, write out why today's going to be a good day, and focus on that. Focus on the blessings you have, focus on what you've accomplished, and focus on that instead of, oh, this could potentially go wrong,
Mhm.
or I'm not happy about this, because I feel like when you start doing that, you really get yourself into this black hole kind of mentality, and it's really hard to come out of. So now that I've started doing this work, I really notice that I'm actually a way, way happier than I've ever been in my entire life
Mhm.
because I focus on the things that make me happy, the things that bring me joy, rather than things that I'm not happy with, or things that have hurt me in the past, because now I'm looking forward and thinking about these things instead of, this stuff is not good or whatever it may be. But I think doing that is something that has helped me so much. And I never knew about any of this kind of work on your mindset, like work on yourself. I always thought, I'm like, okay, you go to therapy, you take your medication, you listen to your doctor, whatever they're telling you, do that,
Yeah.
and then you'll be fine. You'll be good. And I was doing all of that, but I still wasn't good because of the habits that I had, the
Right.
mindset that I had, the thoughts that I had, the way I would talk to myself, so critical, and all of that. So I needed to change that and work on that, and that took years, but that was the probably the biggest thing that has impacted me
Right.
and just made everything feel good, because I feel like sometimes when you get a diagnosis, like you're diagnosed depression, anxiety, bipolar, whatever it is, then you could feel good about that because you're like, okay, now, I know this is what the diagnosis is, and I could, work towards fixing this. But then sometimes that's almost like I guess, a mark of shame to people because it's a label,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you are whatever you're diagnosed with. That's bad. That's not a good thing." So, I think it's, just having more of these conversations and letting everyone know that we all have struggled at some point with our mental health, and like you said, rather that be on like a bigger scale of you were hospitalized and like all of this stuff, or whether you're just feeling burnt out and
Yeah.
stressed and overwhelmed. Everyone has moments where we feel like that. So
Absolutely.
I think that's the thing, is I think it should be more normalized to talk about it, because if it was, then I feel like more people would feel comfortable seeking help or asking for help if they need it or want it, instead of feeling like I can't have this conversation. This isn't good. And, I can't tell anyone this. So
Yeah.
that would be much better.
Yeah, it only makes things worse if you don't like if you cannot talk about it. But 100%, I totally agree that like removing the stigma and talking about it, and also what you like mentioned about self-critical talks. That's such an
Mhm,
interesting like topic, I think, because like I think everybody else does that, or many people that do that anyway. Like I myself, for example, noticed that I'm quite self-critical, and I hear myself saying some like not so nice things about myself, criticizing myself all the time. And I also do mindful meditation. I try to do that every day. I love it,
mhm,
and I have tried different forms of meditation, but I really love mindfulness because that kind of has helped me with self-critical talks. It really like calms down my mind, and and as you say, it's just I think sometimes it feels like it's just degree of you know um, mental health. I think self-criticism is quite common. I think more than 50% of the population probably does that regularly. But then there are more serious, like if you want to talk about schizophrenia, and those are really serious mental illness then. But it's it should be really okay for everyone to talk about. Like I have
Yes.
difficult
Mhm.
times. I'm self-critical. I'm having bipolar. I'm having some other kind of struggle with mental health. And I think it's quite actually in this way similar with our body. Like there are very healthy people and there are like sick people, yes, but there are like people in between, right? Like some people are having mild symptoms with their body, and some people are so seriously ill that they are hospitalized. It's exactly like the illness our body can have. So why don't we just become as open with mental health and illness as we are actually with like body and health and illness. And that's exactly how I admire what I really admire about your podcast. And you have had such interesting guests and conversations. You have covered quite different like mental health and mindset from various angles, and I have listened to many of your previous episodes. My favorite one can be the one you discussed like this genetic mental health from genetic viewpoint. I think you talked about how um, was it addiction, and I think like some mental illness can have genetic origins. I think you had I can't remember how, like it was a professor, a very famous professor from a university, I think, who you had as a guest. And
Oh, Dr. Kenneth
yeah,
Blunt.
yeah,
So he
it is. Yeah,
actually
exactly,
discovered the gene linked to addiction.
exactly.
And it was really interesting because I met him through another one of my guests,
Hmm.
John Giordano, who actually used to own an addiction treatment center. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was like fascinating. Um, when it comes to improving and like taking control of your mental health, what are your strategies you have found helpful with you?
Yeah, so I think that you brought up a really good point of talking about physical health and how, sometimes when people are struggling, right, with their physical health, they go to a hospital, there's something wrong with, your heart, your lungs, whatever it is, that isn't looked at the same way as when you're hospitalized for, your mental health, or if you've
Right,
had a breakdown of some kind and you're, taken involuntarily, that's not looked at the same way. And I think for me, what I really think is important is taking care of both, right? So taking care of your physical health, taking care of your mental health. And I really like how you talked about meditation because I think that's a really good one, but also, exercising and paying attention to what you're really putting into your body, like what are you
hmm
eating and the foods you're eating, making sure you're getting enough water, and starting, meditation is a good one, and journaling, gratitude journaling I think is a good one too. But I think it's really important because before in the past, I never really paid or took much care of a lot of different things. I just
right.
would, kind of like, I remember being younger when before I was hospitalized, like 18 years old, 19, before I went in, and I just kind of, every single day was the same thing, so I would
Yeah.
work two jobs and I would go out, party, just drink, and not really care what I was doing or where I was going or who
hmm
I was around, all of these things. And so I think another good thing is to pay attention to how we talk to ourselves. So we talked about
hmm
being really critical and having that inner voice of just basically beating ourselves down and like being really, really mean to ourselves. So watching out for that and being able to choose your inner cheerleader over
hmm
your inner critic, I think is
Right.
important, really
That's a
important.
really that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, in our cheerleader, we all need one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
um, when it comes to like mental health, some people are like seems to have more resilient mind, right? Like better mental health, like very stable and resilient. Do you think that there are some signatures to those individuals? Like what make resilient, strong mental health?
I think it's really important to kind of look at the picture overall, right? So, for me, like the people you're around, the environments you're in, like the foods you're eating are like all of these things together play a part. And I feel like really affects your mental health because if your physical health is bad and, if you're feeling sick, something's wrong, you're injured, whatever it is, then that could potentially affect your mental health and make you like just be overwhelmed, stressed out, sad, all of these things. So I think it's important to kind of pay attention to everything,
Right.
involved all of it. So, and make sure you're around people who support you, who lift you up, who encourage you, and make sure you're doing that for other people as well. So making sure you're doing that for others, making sure you're around good people, making sure you're taking care of your body, um, and doing these things that are and forming good habits,
Right.
cutting out bad habits. So what I had to do was switch how I would talk to myself. So working on that, the inner voice, changing that, making it more positive, and then also changing the things that I was doing. So,
Mm,
not going out and being around people who really honestly didn't have, my best interest at heart, just, like to be around me because I was like really entertaining and wild and would do all kinds of things.
mhm.
And it was just fun to see and watch. So making sure you're around, you have a good support system. You're taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your body. You're just doing things every day that are helping you stay in that place and continue to grow, continue to learn, and also, just educating yourself, right? So I mean, if you have been diagnosed with something, just doing research on it and learning more about this and also learning more about yourself, right? So different things, that could potentially be triggering for you or different
Right.
moments you've gone through where, things have been hurtful for you in the past. But also, I think that one of the really big ones is dealing with unresolved trauma.
Mhm.
So, therapy, counseling, just dealing with that because, that was the biggest thing for me is like not dealing with that and ignoring it, not talking about it, not wanting to talk about it was uh, just ended up really affecting me and my life, my relationships, all
Right.
of it because I didn't deal with it because I thought that I couldn't, I thought that I shouldn't do that. I didn't think I needed to do that. But I would definitely, encourage people like if there's been something that has happened to you and this is, really really affected you and has been traumatic and has hurt you, then to I would definitely encourage people to do whatever they can to work on that, whether it be therapy, counseling. Like there's so many resources out there. Like you don't just have to do that, but I would say to do something about it because for at least in my case, me not doing anything
Mhm.
was really bad. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's such an interesting topic, this unresolved trauma, because sometimes we cannot even remember what really happened to us,
yes,
and
yeah.
that can be hurting. And in the biohacking community, where this podcast is for, it's there has actually been quite a lot of recent talks about like trauma that comes from like from your genes, so from your actually ancestors. So you have not experienced anything, but maybe your grandmother, for example, and that can actually, because like when you discuss the genetic origin of mental illness, there was this epigenetic conversation with epigenetics, and the idea is that this epigenetical changes in our genes can be caused by previous trauma, which not you didn't experience, but maybe your your mother, your grandmother, or your father, grandfathers. So that's actually really fascinating area for me, and how you can like improve such trauma which you never experienced, but still impacting your mental health, not only maybe mental health but even physical health.
Oh yeah, I think that's really important too. And that's so interesting
Yeah.
that you bring that up because I feel like that's so true, right? So because,
Yeah.
especially something that you haven't experienced, but maybe, someone in your family, your mom, your grandma, your dad, whoever, whatever the trauma was that they experienced that, maybe they don't remember or they don't
Right.
have really memory of that, or maybe they just don't want to talk about it. They don't feel like they can, they don't feel like they'll be ready, or whatever the situation is. But I think, I think everyone handles that differently, but I feel like honestly for me, I can say talking about that and just telling someone and just getting that out there, because for me, letting that just sit in my mind, and like mine was like just like sexual trauma, right? So not talking about that and just feeling, and just letting that every single day, just saying it's okay, just move on, just like forget about it, it's fine, was really damaging to me, because I
Mhm.
ended up actually, not knowing, like having no awareness of this, but just basically, again, like treating myself badly because of that. And then because of that, of course, like not being fun to be around because I wasn't doing well. So I was, very negative to other people as well, and just
Right.
not really being having a good experience just being alive because of that.
Mm.
So I would definitely say, like that's really important, because sometimes too, like if we don't deal with these things, then we don't know when something's going to come out because of this, right? So and then that also makes me think of, for me, like if I never dealt with these things, right, then one day, when I'm a mother and I have kids, what
Mhm.
if I end up treating my kids badly, and hurting them, and not knowing I'm doing that because of whatever I went through that I'm not dealing with, that's coming out, and I end up treating them badly and making them feel, that I don't love them, I don't care about them, and all of this because of something that I experienced that maybe I don't really remember,
Yeah.
but it definitely affected me. So I think that that's a really big one, because, if more people felt comfortable doing that and talking about these things, then I think honestly, just the world would be a much better place, because I feel like there would be less crime, there'd be less, violence, domestic abuse, less, issues with, all kinds of things. People
Yeah.
going in and out of jail, people, having multiple hospitalizations, because if we could make people feel comfortable and let them know, this is okay, that you've had a struggle with this, or you've gone through this, and you can talk about that, and it's totally fine, and we can, find some way to work through this and make this better, then I think that a lot of issues that we see when we watch the news, all of these things that are happening, like people fighting, arguing, killings, all kinds of stuff going on,
Yeah.
I think would be better, because I feel like a lot of that stuff comes from within us,
Yeah.
within our minds and our thought process and how we see the world, how we see ourselves. And sometimes that can become very, very dark and very, very negative, because
Mhm.
nothing's being done, or nothing's, there's no treatment, there's nothing, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And then one day, people, wake up and turn the news on and say, oh wow, like there was a shooting, or this person, killed their family, or whatever it was. And then everyone's like, wow, I wonder, why this happened. This person seemed so happy, and they didn't, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
And, part of that I think is coming from something was going on, and this person felt, maybe they can't talk about this, or they don't want to talk about this, or they don't need to, or whatever it is. There's some kind of, I feel like maybe the biggest part of it is stigma. There's some kind of
Mhm.
stigma there that is holding people back from wanting to have these conversations, because of how the reaction will be. Like they might be judged, they might be criticized. And I wish that was like not a thing at all, because
Yeah.
then it would be much better, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And there was also another thing which you mentioned previously, which I really cannot agree more. You mentioned like things like what you do, like what you eat, your nutrition, your exercises, they all have impacts on your mental health. And I really truly cannot agree more because, like for example, it's a very simple example. If you don't sleep, like after a couple of days, you will become crazy, right? You are really, your mental health is
Oh yeah.
really fragile, and that's very evident that what we do, like what we eat, and you, when you say that you really have to take care of yourself, it also it really includes like basic things like what you eat, like do some physical exercises. And I have heard actually like people saying um, sauna or like sauna is very big in biohacking community right now. And I think that there have been some studies showing that, you know, daily sauna, or like if you go into sauna couple times in a week, that
Yes.
also improves your mood. You know, the heat and the sweating, and that also has like very positive impact not only on your physics but also your mental health. So there are lots of things people actually can do to you know, to improve their, like to take care of their mental health and make sure that they are in a good mental form. And I wanted to also ask you, because you have such an extensive background in psychology, um, especially about stress, because that's, I think, something many people are struggling with. Not only, you know, people who know that or diagnose that they have mental health, but, you know, I would say almost all of us
Hmm.
face a stress. Um, could you maybe tell us like how stress impacts us and maybe your personal experiences with this aspect of mental health?
Yeah, so I would definitely say that stress for me, right? So stress, it definitely impacts me and has a lot in the past because I never managed it. I
Yeah.
just would I would just let myself get so overwhelmed and so worked up and so focused on whatever it was that was going on, and now really having an awareness of that, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things is just knowing that we are in control of that. And sometimes we don't feel like we are, right? So like there might be a
Hmm.
situation, right? So like say like you get in a car accident. You're
Hmm.
driving, you're going somewhere, you get in a car accident and then because of that, now you're just, really upset, really stressed out. You're worried about, you know, like your car or the other, or like if no one's hurt, you're worried about whatever happened to the car and now this is a big deal. And like that's the thing is we're able to control how we react to situations or respond. So we
Hmm.
can react, right, and get really really upset, really really worked up and all of this stuff, right? And of course
Hmm.
that's going to happen, like it's not like we can just every single day like this is fine, not have a
Right.
reaction to things. But I think for me, like when I get like that, it's not good because I feel like I'm the kind of person where, something will happen and I can either, get really, really reactive, really, really upset, and just it ends up affecting me for hours and hours and hours later. Like
Mm.
I'll still be mad about this. I'll still be, complaining about it, talking about it, focused on this. This sucks. This is wrong. I'm upset. And just in a really, really bad place.
Hmm.
And, but then when we can say, how can we fix this? And I started to move, away from the problem and being so problem focused and more
Hmm.
towards the solution based and what can we do about this instead of, and there's, of course, there's some things in life that you can't control, but there's a lot of things that you can control.
Right.
And just knowing that and I think that makes, stress management is such a big thing that I think is a really important topic to get into too because there, like you said, there's a lot of different things you can do for that, right? So you talked about sauna, right? So sitting in a sauna,
Yeah.
and there's all kinds of things that people could do. Like you can go on a walk, you could call a family member, a friend who makes you feel good talking to them. You could
Yes.
eat your favorite food, have some tea, have coffee, sit down, read a book, like do just and kind of like to search for that and know what your things are. So what are things that you do
Mm.
that you enjoy that help you calm down or help you de-stress, or like when you're in a situation that isn't good, what can you do about that instead of focusing so much on what's wrong? Because I think for me, that's
Mhm.
really damaging for me is when I spend so much time on, oh my god, this is so bad, like this is just the worst thing ever, instead of, what can we do about this?
Right.
Because that really I think is the biggest piece too, is like just knowing that, because before I just felt so hopeless and so out of control and so and like I'm not in control when really we are. But if we get so wrapped up in the problem, of course we're going to feel like we can't do anything about it, but we can. And just, letting people know that there's different things that we can do to manage stress and different options for that, I think is a really, really nice thing
Yeah,
to know, because there's always something we can do about that. And
right.
so I think that's a really beautiful thing, because, definitely, if for me, when I never managed my stress, it got really bad, because I would end up, of course, like treating myself bad, yelling at other people, just being this person who it's like no one wants to be around, because you're so upset, you're so mad, you're so, just you want to fight with people, like, and it's almost like I became addicted to that kind of way of living. Like I liked, and it was so weird. It's like, who likes that? Like, who wants to wake up
Right.
and be in a bad mood and just look for things that are wrong and just fight with people? And that's really how it was for a long time, until I started to like say, this is not a good way to live. Like, it's not okay for me to do this to myself, to treat other people like this. Like, I need to do something different. I need to change. I need to learn how to manage stress. I need to deal with my unresolved trauma. I need to work on this. And once I did that, things just started to get really, really way, way better. So that was really important.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is such an important thing for all of us, right? Because that really makes a huge difference. As you say, if you know what reduces your stress when you are in a crisis, then it's such a big weapon you can have to manage your stress. I'm just curious because you mentioned your bipolar disorder. Do you react? Do you feel like your reaction to stress is different depending on if you are like a depressive phase or more like a hyper phase?
I think it's a lot different, because I am more aware of what's going on, and I've done, a lot of work on this. So I feel like before, it was a lot different. So like, when I was more like in that depressed period, it everything just felt really difficult for me. And I felt like, just, and of course you hear it all the time, right? When people talk about depression, like it's so hard to get out of bed, it's hard to find motivation. I don't enjoy the things that I used to anymore. I don't have much to say in conversations anymore. And that's really what it was like for me. I went from being this person who was, had so much to say and was really outgoing and really bubbly and excited about things, to just not really caring about anything, not really wanting to do anything, because I was so focused on what was wrong or what was hurting me. And it just felt really difficult to deal with that. But then when I was, going through like the manic phases, right? And just having all of this energy, going to work, working two jobs, and just going out all night and just not being tired, and just having just racing thoughts, talking so fast, going out, just spending money on a bunch of stuff, like just being so reckless and so careless, that I didn't even process any. I was just going, like going, 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 not
Mhm.
looking at what I was really doing. And I feel like that's, a thing too, is I didn't have awareness at that time, but now I know, right? So now I know, when I start to sense like, and that's the thing too, is like, I don't, it's so weird, because I feel like, after doing all this work and like, doing all this mindset stuff work and all of this, now I'm so much more aware
Mhm.
of myself, and I'm more calm and more relaxed and more just happier. And I
Mhm.
feel like I don't really experience that as much anymore. I don't really and get as sad and overwhelmed, because I don't know. And I feel like, of course, like I'm gonna probably have that happen again, where there's of course days where you're not gonna be happy or, in the best mood. But I think now that I'm aware of that, I see what's going on, and I tell myself, okay, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to, come out of this situation instead of staying there? And I feel like that's okay too. Like if you want it, and that's fine too. If you're going through something or something's going on, you don't have to just, oh, how can I get out of this right now? No, like that's normal to, have a process of where you're grieving or not, that's normal too. So I
Yeah.
think it's just, the thing is to like pay attention to yourself and pay attention to the things that bring up bad memories or trigger you or make you sad, make you feel bad about yourself, and pay and notice that, and then also notice the things that make you happy, that bring you joy, that make you excited about waking up in the morning. So noticing those things. And I think having a balance, right? And just taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, and making that an everyday habit, right? So make and doing these practices. So
Yeah.
meditating, journaling, eating different foods, drinking water, going on a walk, going to the gym, whatever it is, reading a book, whatever it is, doing these things every day. And then you start and just noticing the difference. And that's really what I did. And over time I
Yeah.
started to notice, wow, I went from being such a negative person, like very negative person, to now like it's almost harder for me to really be negative because I really shifted that and like and try to change that to now it's like I don't even have these thoughts anymore as much as I did before. So I think that's really cool. So
Yeah. That's really amazing because like after having listened to many of your like podcast episodes, one thing, like first thing which came to my mind when I think about you, the host, is like Paris is such a happy, open person. Like I would have actually never imagined that you had so many negative thoughts. That's like that would
Mhm.
never have occurred to me like after listening to you, how you speak and how you discuss things with your guests. So I definitely agree that after like this self-awareness or the your journey with your mental health, it must have like shifted somehow. Like you have actually like become like a little bit different. You are probably different place with your mental health. I think.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I think that I agree because and that's the thing is it took a lot of work and it took a lot of different things and it took years. So this wasn't just something that that I woke up and I was like struggling really really badly and then all of a sudden, I'm so happy and like really positive. It took, a lot of different things, So
Yeah.
and that's another thing too, is I would encourage people to try different things, right? So, whether that be therapy or medications or, looking into different resources. So, like other things that you can do at home, right? So meditation, just different different exercises, talking to your friends, talking to your family, talking to someone that you trust and who you know and that will, be able to help you out or support you or give you good advice and, just being aware of
Yeah.
yourself, right? And your situation and different things that you struggled with in the past and learning from that, right? So like learning from those moments instead of saying, wow, this happened to me and it was really bad and I can't believe, and just saying, and of course like different things happen that are not
Hmm.
good and that you don't want to happen, but taking that and moving forward from it instead of staying stuck
Yeah.
with it. Like this hurt me, and letting that change you, right? Letting that make you bitter towards yourself, towards other people. And of course, I'm not, I'm talking about my experiences, right? So letting my stuff really keep me stuck. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to keep living my life every single day in this place. And it's like, I don't want to be like this anymore. I'm not happy. Um, I'm just not treating myself good. I'm not I need a change. So I was like, I need to do
Yeah.
something different. And I'm like, of course, like I had the therapy, I was on the medication, it was good. And I'm like, I feel like fine. But then inside, I'm like, I still am not happy. I'm like, why? Like, what's going on? And I think it's, for me, that was part of the journey is like really understanding what can I do to bring more joy into my life and to take more of this pain and negativity out. What can I do about this? How can I change this? And that's really what I love about Crooked Illness is it's honestly given me this, platform to really connect with so many different people. Like I talk to authors, teachers, speakers, professional athletes, all cancer survivors, veterans, all kinds of people who do all kinds of different things, but they all have something in common, and what they all have in common is they all have a story. They all have
Mm.
a story, something to share with me, and related to mental health, related to mindset, related to what they did to overcome something they went through. And that's what I love talking about. And that's really what I love featuring, is because I feel like I take something away from every single conversation I have. There's so much value in hearing. And I think that's, everybody has a story. We all have something we can
Yeah.
say that could potentially help somebody, or like someone could listen to that and say, wow, I wish I knew that sooner, or I didn't know about this and this is going to help me. And I think everybody has that. And that's really what I think is so beautiful about, storytelling and talking about mental health, talking about mindset, is that every single day we're still learning. We're still learning, we're still growing, and we're being able to apply that information into our life to make our lives better. And I think that's really the best thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And your podcast, Cooked Illness, it's really awesome. And I have, as I said, I have listened to many of the previous episodes. And what inspired you to start Cooked Illness in the beginning? I think it's a 1 year old. Now I think.
yes,
Yes,
I just
yay.
had the
Yeah,
1 year old birthday anniversary. But yeah,
yeah,
so what really inspired me, like I mentioned, it was my story. So because for so many years I never told it, and I was afraid. Of course, I had attached a stigma to my own experience, and I was just living in fear because of that. I didn't want anyone to know, oh my gosh, if anyone finds out that I was hospitalized or I was diagnosed bipolar, then they'll think
yeah,
I'm crazy, they won't want to be my friend or whatever. And I was like, you know what, I need to stop doing this, because if I'm going to live like this, but then I'm so passionate for helping other people, then it makes no sense. I'm like, I'm going to tell my story, because I'm like, this could do more for people
mhm,
than if I just keep this hidden and locked away and never talk about it. So
yeah,
I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell my story. And I've always loved learning from people. I really love like hearing people tell me something and learning something new from what they're telling me. So that's really why I started it too, is just to, of course, bring more of these conversations to the table and make mental health conversations more normalized and less stigmatized. So
yeah,
that's really the main goal of why I did it and why I launched it, and why I continue to have these conversations and do these things, because I think it's just important, and people want to, and I wish I had something like this to listen to when I was younger, because this definitely really would have helped me. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely will link your show, Crooked Illness podcast, on the show note of this episode. And are there any exciting future plan for Crooked Illness possibly, or is it are there anything you are thinking
Yeah.
about?
So I am actually in the process right now of creating some merch. So I have some shirts I'm working on, like a
Hmm.
sweater, some designs that I'm putting together
Wow.
with a graphic designer, and it's so much fun, because
Yeah.
kind of just putting good messages out there, good messages out there for people, and also making that available to people. And then also I have a book that I've been, so before I launched my podcast,
Hmm.
I had this book, and it's Crooked Illness. That's what it's called. So that's really where the name came from, is my story,
Right.
and that's the book that I'm writing. So it's almost done,
Wow.
and I'm hoping to have that published in 2021. So it's like literally, like I think I'm gonna do like 5 more pages. Then that first draft is done. Then I'm gonna kind of look into
Wow.
the publishing process. So that's another thing. So the book, and the merch, and I don't know what else is next. I'm always open to like new opportunities, new experiences, all of that. But I just think it's been so much fun so far. Everyone I've spoken to, every guest I've had, every listener who tells me, I loved your episode, I love that you talked about this. It's just been so much fun. So
Yeah.
it's just a really really cool
That's
process.
amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations with the book, and that sounds so exciting. I would definitely be looking forward to reading your book when it's published.
Thank you.
And are there anything else you would like to share with our audiences about mental illness or mental health, about Crooked Illness podcast. Anything else you would like to add?
It was so much fun talking with you. This was such a good interview, such a good conversation. And I just want to say to
Thank
everyone
you.
listening, you guys, if you want to check out my podcast, like we were talking about, it's called Crooked Illness. You can get it wherever you get your podcast, or you can also follow me on Instagram, Crooked Illness, there as well. Or my email is crookedillness@gmail.com if you would like to be a guest or share your thoughts with me on any of the episodes you listen to, or also share your thoughts with me on this episode that we're doing right now and let me know what you think about it. And I'd love to hear that. So you guys can check that out there. And another thing I would like to say is just, if you have ever struggled in the past with your mental health, or you're struggling right now, or whatever the situation may be, there's always something that we can do about it. There's always something to look forward to. There's always something to be excited about. So I just want to kind of leave it on a positive note and let you guys know that, this has been just such a fun chat, and I really look forward to, hearing from you guys and seeing what you think.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paris, again for today for being our guest, and I had so much fun as well talking to you. And I really look forward to listening to your future episodes and reading your book, and yeah, and hopefully we talk again soon, maybe when after your book is released.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah, exciting. Thank you so much again, Paris. And please keep doing your wonderful job with your Crooked Illness podcast.
Thank you, Eva.
This was a podcast from Kenkwax. To follow us, subscribe on the channel Kenkwax on all the places where you can find podcasts.